Welcome to Whole Lot of Wolves, episode 27 of season 6. I'm Joshua Buckley with co-host Danny Paletti. How's it going, Danny?
Oh, it's going all right.
It's going all right. Well, it was a mixed bag of sorts this last week. It started with an incredible 2-2 comeback draw against Arsenal, as Arsenal bottled it again. But of course, it's Wolves. We just can't have a nice week with a lot of stuff. And they lost to Crystal Palace 1-0 on Sunday. But let's start with the good, Danny. And that was that 2-2 draw against Arsenal. Did you know that's actually the first time a team at the bottom has come back from being down 2 goals against a team that's at the top of the table? It seemed like there was no chance for anything that match when they went down 2-0.
Yeah. First of all, I'm a big fan of like Football Cliches podcast and all the sort of language around it. There was a lot of people debating whether that is like one of those out there stats where there's too many qualifiers to be like, worth even mentioning. Feel like it's worth mentioning.
I think that one's worth it.
I'm not ready to like engrave it on a trophy or something, but like
you'll never sing that.
But like it's notable. Like, I don't know, when you think about the teams that have been bottom, who, still to this day, I still feel like are worse than Wolves are, but mathematically, maybe not so much. It's just like kind of shocking that a team at the top would sort of give up that kind of lead. And I don't know, it's like, obviously it's amazing and hilarious to be dancing on Arsenal's grave, potentially prematurely, but it's just like you think about the champions from the past several years, and just like, I don't know, you can't imagine any of them giving that up to the teams that were bottom in those years, Leicester or Southampton or Sheffield, like imagine like Man City going up 2 goals against Sheffield United one of those years, and then somehow contriving to not get anything out of that game. I would be very shocked.
It was very Arsenal, I'll say that. But I mean, apparently it was the weather, according to that one one Arsenal fan who also blamed the Queen's death that another guy. That guy. It's incredible the excuses that'll come out. And that goes for Wolves fans as well. So Rob Edwards, when that lineup came out, it was very odd because it had Armstrong leading the line up top. Seemed like a really odd decision. Best bet was they were just gonna try and like bottle and then go on a counterattack. However, when Angel Gomez got hurt, Danny, I kind of feel like that bailed out Rob Edwards' lineup selection.
Yeah, I know. I think he kind of refuted it a little bit or tried to in his post-match, but I don't know. I think it's pretty obvious that, unless João Gomez is truly carrying like an injury that we're all so afraid of putting him out there, which in that case, why would you even have him on the bench? It's just like the obvious choice would just be to reach for João Gomez to plug up the midfield. So the fact that he brought in Tolu, who's, a completely different player. We're not even talking about like a Bellegarde or a Mane who like play forward, but are, sort of centrally located a lot of the times. Like we're talking about like full on tall striker for, your tiny playmaker. So I think that's a pretty obvious recognition that at least something needed to change. I don't know if he would characterize as having gotten it wrong, but we can call it that.
Yeah, we can call it that. I'd have to look at the exact stats, but that was probably the smallest player substituted for the largest player on the team, correct?
Ooh, now that I'd love to see that stat. Surely that can't be the case, like, in Premier League history or whatever.
No, I'm just saying on this year's Wolves.
For this squad, definitely. But yeah, I'd love to see that. Yeah.
Who's got the time to figure where's your Excel chart for that one, Danny?
The problem is tracking player heights is like just not a thing that is like, I know that those stats databases, but they're not usually like with the stats. They're just attached to the players. So how do you know when they've been substituted for another player of a different height?
Yeah. Well, and
a great data problem to solve.
Yeah, heights and weights can always fluctuate as well when it comes to team stuff. So yeah, Wolves fell down early 1-0, and then early in the second half they gave up the second one. It was raining, it was ugly. No chance here. Were you just ready to almost turn off the TV at that point?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I'll tell you what I was doing. I was like thinking about getting dinner started. It was like I had some stuff to prep, and I was just like, do I need to sit here and watch whatever's going to happen next? Which might be, Arsenal scoring 3 more goals, or it might be just the most excruciating 40 minutes of my life.
I started hopping on Whatnot auctions to
Oh
try and
Lord.
see if I could snag any new Funko deals. So
Wolves,
yeah,
you
I
need
was
to start winning just to save Josh from himself.
you sound like my wife. But then Hugo Bueno with a very muy bueno shot, just a beaut off his left foot, curled in. Uh, Great shot, put Wolves on the board. Kind of maybe started to feel like, okay, maybe Wolves could pull a point out of here. My question though is Bueno has really stepped it up the last few weeks. Do you feel like he's gonna be on the squad next year, or is he doing enough to have another Premier League club or top tier club come after him?
I certainly hope we can keep him around. I don't know. It was funny texting with my buddy Edgar. We got to get Edgar on here sometime.
Hmm.
Uh, just like it's weird to think that he's one of the longest tenured players on this team. I mean,
Yeah.
I know that he wasn't, necessarily a part of the, starting 11 or even the first team for a lot of that, but he's been at Wolves a long time. And
Hmm.
I guess jumping ahead a bit, I remember a moment during the Palace game where Edgar texted me something about like Hugo Bueno being on tilt near the end. And I was just like, I don't know, he's been here the longest and he's probably as sick of this shit as any of us are. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. It kind of comes to show like, just the way he's been most of the season, where he's been very consistent, at least in terms of his effort. And it's great to see him sort of get rewarded for that because he's tried that shot several times, although usually he's out on the left, and so he has to do it on his weaker foot. But this time, having recently taken the corner, I think he was still over there.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
great assist from Santi Bueno, who now we don't know whether he should play as a striker or a midfielder.
Player of the I mean, he is I know this sounds crazy. He is working his way to be Wolves player of the year.
Very well could be.
I don't know who else would be the choice right
It's
now
true.
from
I
this.
mean, it's like the top goal scorer, where it's like
Hmm.
it's anyone's at this point. Like
Yeah.
there's even though there's only I think like 10 more games to play, 11 more games to play,
Oh,
you know,
so
the
many.
the bar is so low that anyone in those 10 games could do something notable enough that you could be player of the season.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. You know who it could also be is a doozy.
A doozy?
Uh, yeah, a
A
doozy.
dozy? Yeah.
A dozy. A doozy.
I should have
Yeah.
probably coached you on that before.
Yeah. um be honest with me. Did you ever think he would play on in a game for Wolves, let alone score a goal?
No, I mean, obviously not. I mean, I'd seen him play for the under 21s a handful of times, but usually when I'm watching the under 21s, I'm like at work, it's the end of my day. It's obviously a midweek game for them. And I'm just, like putting it on in the background while I finish stuff up at the office. And so I'm not paying super close attention to what he's doing. I hear his name a lot, which means that he must be doing something all right. Um, but yeah, when he came on, I just felt like, we just came off that attritional Grimsby game. And I figured, this is definitely just saving some legs and from the senior players. Get on there, don't do anything embarrassing, and let's get out of here with our dignity.
Yeah, I kind of felt like it was a white flag move. And there's no way Rob Edwards could try and pitch it like, oh, I thought he was going to come in and make an impact on the game. No, don't give me that crap. And it wasn't like he made a tremendous move. It's kind of right place, right time, but a really great shot.
Yeah. Well, exactly. Like it's kind of like what we said with Mane when he sort of had his moment at the beginning of January, whenever that was. Where it's just, like just want to see a player who really wants to be on the pitch and is going to put themselves in the right place to do something. I probably 9 times out of 10, all those things happen again and he doesn't, score it. Like it, Calafiori actually keeps it out or he blazes it over or something else, but he put himself in the right position and it was a great strike. And yeah, I mean, it's one of the few things that's giving us joy this season is seeing some youngsters who are actually fighting for something, even if it's for a future move. Like actually want to be there and actually want to try their hardest to do something.
Mm-hmm. So a big reason that was able to happen is because Arsenal was just crazy with the time wasting, just absolutely brutal. Well, then Wolves tied up, game ends, and Gabriel Jesus just goes ballistic. It goes right after Mosquera, pushes him down. I thought at first he had headbutted him, which would have been crazy. Mosquera, the biggest Wolves shit stir
since before my time. There's not a precedent in my
all I
time.
could think was maybe Potence, maybe.
Yeah, it's slightly different. I see what you're going for. I think Potence, the problem is he's mostly starting something, whereas Mosquera is making the most of something someone else started. Thank God Mosquera doesn't actually start fights because I feel like if he did, it would be like a red card every time he got back from suspension from the last red card because he's on the edge enough as it is just with the way he reacts to people. Right. Because it was not a headbutt. Gabriel Jesus pushed him in the chest and then he grabbed his face.
No.
But yeah, I mean, it was so sweet. I mean, this season has been rough for many reasons. One of my great joys as a consummate hater is, doing the sort of schadenfreude scrolling, watching the reactions of whatever big team just suffered some
humiliating. He dropping 2 humiliating points.
And to see especially like the amount of time they took on a corner. Again, it's just like also like a pet peeve of mine. Like we're cracking down, we're giving goalkeepers 8 seconds to take to get rid of the ball after they grab it, which is already subjective because like when do they control it and like when do people get out of their box so they can technically do it, whatever. And then for these long throws and for these corner kicks, oh yeah, just take as much time as you want, as long as like credibly, like you're not just standing there not doing it. But it's like they just didn't send someone over the corner to take it, and then it's like, okay, well I guess someone has to go take it. Oh yeah, fine. It's like a minute later we're taking the corner kick, and then for Trossard, that whole pantomime, so insane. And I have my own bias against Trossard. There's something in his eyes. That guy does not look pleasant to me. And, I mean, it's like a legitimate foul, and Santi was on a yellow. And if an Arsenal fan wants to tell me that should have been a second yellow, sure, I'll listen to that argument. But Trossard was also holding the wrong side of his head. He went down initially and then got back up and then went back down on the pitch, received treatment on the pitch, which Mosquera was not, allowed to do when he had his little, maybe head injury earlier, was told he has to get off the pitch, then doesn't get off the pitch. 20 minutes later, they sub him out for a defender to try to keep the lead. and that defender ends up being instrumental in deflecting the ball into the goal. So to say that, I guess I'll just say injected into my veins does not do it justice.
Yeah.
It wasn't even about the result. It was just about watching the utter capitulation.
Just complete meltdown. Gabriel Jesus, would you say for Wolves fans he's a top 5 Wolves enemy player currently?
Oh, that's interesting. I feel like yes, qualified, but the fact that like I feel like there's not that much animosity because I feel like all the times we come up against him, and even before when he was with City, like they're like he always kind of came out the worst for it. So it's like kind of
Mhm.
hilarious to see it happen because like I don't recall a time when he's sort of like gotten the better of Wolves in that sort of
Right.
like shithousing way. Whereas there are other players who I think like are sort of villains to the fan base, but have
Yeah.
like actually gotten something out of it. But
Mhm.
like all I remember from his time with City was just like him flailing his arms around and trying to buy fouls and never getting them. Um, so yeah, I don't know if it's just him or if it's also us. I don't know. I don't know what his
Yeah.
deal is.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, after the game, Rob Edwards had some comments regarding the fans. This is the way it went. The question was, how special is it to see the stadium like that? Because it hasn't been an easy season for them. And at times, it didn't feel like it was going to be an easy night for them tonight either. The answer, no. In nights like this, I just hope everyone has a little bit of realism and understand what we're up against as well. We're not just going to turn up and roll Arsenal over easily. So it was never going to be easy, especially when you go 1-0 down early on. So would have liked probably a bit more backing at that point, if I'm being honest. But the way we finished, the energy was around and it was a brilliant feeling. Just to clarify, the reporter asked, would you have liked a little more backing from the supporters tonight? And Rob Edwards said, I just think we got to realize what we're up against in that moment, in that time, when the lads are fighting hard, but Arsenal are really good. So it's not just a case of right, come on. Number one, I really appreciated that reporter did not let that comment go the first time. He kept coming back at it. It was like, so what you're trying to say? So bravo on that. What do you think? Fair or foul by Rob Edwards to basically chastise the fans for getting upset when they're down 1-0 after 6 minutes?
Yeah, I echo your sentiment that, and I cut that down actually the little bit that I
Mm-hmm.
transcribed there. There was
Yeah, because he kept going. The
another
reporter
little
kept going.
bit of back and forth, and he even like it was very respectful because
Mm-hmm.
the reporter said like I recognize I'm pushing you on this,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe we've gone too far or whatever, and Rob sort of recognizes it, and so it's like it's okay, but it's also just like it is one of the things that I want to hear about. Like I appreciated the reporter saying like just to be clear, like this is the thing that we're talking about because I don't know, like it's not their fault. They're like being asked to comment on this vague thing, minutes after a really emotional
Right.
moment. Um, and so like I appreciate the clarity first of all. And yeah, I think like my reaction to it was sort of twofold. There, I think a lot of people who like spend too much time online did, where there was like a big like initial reaction from the folks on Twitter, where it was just like, how could he say this? Like slagging off the fans for not, cheering or whatever, and then sort of like going back to like, well, when you actually listen to it, it's a little more nuanced, and I can understand where he's coming from. That said, I mean, like I fully understand, having been involved in sports to a very
Mm-hmm.
small degree myself, having like coach teams, having like captain teams, having like been in admin/leadership roles. I get what he's trying to do, which is he is trying to protect the squad that he has, which probably like is not doing that well, in terms of mentality this season.
Right.
And even the ones who he thinks are like kind of on the way out and they aren't going to be here next season, he still needs them to perform for
Mm-hmm.
the rest of the season so that he doesn't look bad. So he is doing his best to sort of protect his players and say, like if it's the case that for him, Chachua, for instance, is the most solid choice that he can pick at right wing back, and we'll probably
Yeah.
talk about the Palace discussion, then like it doesn't help him for fans to be cheering or jeering or whatever when Chachua gets subbed off. It makes Rob's job harder. So I fully get that part of it. The part where I wish that he could be more eloquent, and maybe he wishes that he could have been more eloquent at the time, is that the relationship between the fans, especially the match going fans, the ones who are at Molyneux all the time,
Yeah.
the relationship that they have with the club, by which I mean like the hierarchy, is like borderline completely broken. Maybe completely broken. I don't know, but I guess we'll see like when the season ticket pricing comes out whether it's completely broken. But it's just like the 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 relationship that they have is so dysfunctional now that I don't know. I like if I were there, I probably would be venting my frustration for 90 minutes too, because it's not about losing, especially not about losing to the league leaders, to Arsenal,
Mm-hmm.
who like have been extremely strong this season. I think most Wolves fans come up to that thinking like, just don't get embarrassed, just don't get like lose by
Right.
4-0 or less, and we'll be okay. It's not about that. It's just about like um a hierarchy that seems very out of touch, and a team that seems so ill prepared, which reflects on poor choices by the hierarchy again. And those frustrations are going to boil over. And when you're watching literally nothing on the pitch, I mean, this was a good comeback, but also like let's not pretend that we
They didn't
created.
really deserve points out of
I
that.
mean, I think we were good value for the draw in the end, but it's not like we were creating tons and tons of chances. We're having to watch this product, if you use that term, all the time, that like where we're just not creating that much. Even the games where we are doing somewhat better, like in the Palace game that we'll talk about in a second,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like we're creating tons of chances. It's not like there's moments during the game where you're thinking like, oh, one of these is going to go in. It's more like one of these attacking maneuvers will get into their final third, and then maybe we'll get lucky with a penalty, which that didn't work out. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Oh, penalties.
spoiler alert. But yeah. So anyway, I guess I imagine that I would hope that Rob Edwards would like to rephrase some of that. And he'll probably be more careful in the future, especially given how like they sort of recognized during that interview that like, oh, maybe we've pushed this too far. But
Well, and
again,
that was what was wild to me is he didn't have to like start that whole conversation. There was
yeah,
nothing in there where they asked like, "Oh, the fans are booing you early on. Were you glad to like give them something to like?" It was not mentioned at all, and that was kind of on his own. So it's
yeah,
a self-done mess there. And I think that's also an issue when you get former players and not guys that were just like backup keepers, right?
right.
Like actual on the pitch a lot players. Sometimes you're going to get stuff like that. They may be not as versed in PR. Like, I don't know. Again, good by the reporter to keep pushing it, but Rob Edwards did that to himself. So I'm not going to sit there and feel sorry for him for it. So it was a point, though. Hey, a point against the top team. Very exciting. Heading into Crystal Palace on Sunday, okay, let's see what we can do. JSL's coming back, or we're seeing JSL again. And honestly, Danny, in that first half, especially, Wolves were by far the better team than Crystal Palace.
Yeah, but I want to I'm going to tamp down that excitement and say that it's a low
I mean, they
bar.
still sucked,
Yeah.
but
No, I mean it's a low bar because I think Palace just weren't that good either. I agree that I think Wolves looked more competent because of what Palace was giving them, and I think especially the amount of fouls that Crystal Palace were committing made me think that there could be something here. But again, still just not really creating tons and tons of chances out of it. But it was good to see us be a little more competent with possession. So not too bad. Again, the starting lineup being essentially what the lineup was after Angel Gomez got injured last game sort of lends more credence to the idea that that's the lineup he should have gone with anyway. But yeah, overall first half, not the worst I've seen Wolves this season, but I think anybody listening will know what a low bar that is.
Well, and then in the 41st minute, Wolves drew a penalty. And it was a very obvious, like, it should have taken VAR like half a second to see. Okay. So Arokadare is the one who came up to take it. I didn't even know his penalty record, but when he walked up, I was like, okay, I get it as the number 9, like, which is essentially what he is right now. He doesn't wear the kit, but he's the number 9. Like, you should be able to bury that. But at the same time, the aerial game is his forte, not necessarily driving it from the spot. And so I was a little surprised when I saw him go up there. And Danny, it was a bad penalty kick. I mean, he telegraphed it the whole time. Didn't even really have that much power. You think that's the last penalty he's going to be allowed to take for Wolves after that effort?
I kind of hope so, which isn't that great to say, but I also was not aware of his record previously. Mm-hmm. But looking at it, I'm just like, I'm kind of surprised that we didn't have some plan. Like, apparently, like, Krejci is someone who takes penalties pretty frequently, at his previous clubs, and he's got a pretty good record. Armstrong also has an okay record from the spot.
That's who I thought was going to get it. I thought Armstrong was going to be the one to take the penalty.
And then also you have, like, not that I really want Mane to be taking it, but it's like he won it and he wanted to take the previous one that I think, Hee-chan scored against West Ham. And like, he was never going to take it then. But like, I don't know. If you're going to kind of do a, like, what the hell, go ahead. I'd rather it be for Mane. But I guess I do see the wisdom in, like, there's just that culture of, like, the guy who's leading the line takes it. And he's also of these forwards, he's been with the team the longest, which is like he's been here 4 more months than them. And so, like, in terms of that, I guess it would be kind of like a weird pulling rank on him to have someone else take it. That being said, like, if you're going to give it to someone, if you're Rob Edwards and say, like, hey, if we get a penalty this game, who's going to take it? Like, the plan to me, the obvious plan should either be Krejci for the numbers or let's get Adam Armstrong off the mark. Like, if he can score a goal, maybe that means he scores some goals in the remainder of the season. And so it is a little bit baffling. I don't know. It was just continued pain for this season because it felt very much like a continuation of the stuff that we've been dealing with, where it's just like nothing is working out. And very similar to a penalty that Strand Larson took previously. We're just like very limp and like, I don't know what's worse is
I feel like that would have been, if I took a penalty, it would have looked like that.
Yeah, that's about
like,
right.
We go up. I don't know how to, like, change it at the last minute. I'm picking a spot. I'm going for it. It's not being kicked very hard. I mean, that was probably most of the people in the stadium could have attempted a penalty just like that.
Yeah, and I don't know what's worse is having to watch that penalty or then having to, because there weren't that many highlights from the game, listen to the commentators talk about, like, what a great penalty save it was, which what they mean is it's an important penalty save. Because if Wolves, I think, like, genuinely, if Wolves go 1-0 up there and we go into halftime, probably, I think we can shut up shop well enough and hope to maybe score one on the break against a pretty poor Palace team. We have a chance of winning that game. So, like, important one, but they had to keep saying there was, like, a really good penalty save. And it's just like, it wasn't a good penalty save again,
Yeah.
as much as you could probably take that same penalty shot, I think I could have maybe made that save.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, keepers are just picking a side, right? He picked the right side, and as long as he picked the right side on that, it was going to be saved
Yeah.
because it was that bad. Um, you know what I would like to see in the sport is the person who was fouled being the one who has to take the penalty kick. I would like to see that.
Yeah, I think you'd get tired of that when there's a penalty from like a corner kick or something, and it's like, can you imagine Wolves never get a penalty in the first place? We go like an entire season without a penalty, and then like Tony Gomez gets fouled on a corner kick, and there's a penalty, and he has to take
I
it.
would love it. I would love it.
That being
Let's do
said,
it.
Tony Gomez maybe takes a better penalty than Tolu for all we know.
Yeah. I think that would make it a little more exciting. For instance, like in the NBA, if if you're fouled, you take the free throws, right? If you cannot take the free throws because you got hurt or something, you're out of the game. Like that's just that you have to be substituted out. There was one Patrick Ewing, like this was God, I'm old, 25 years ago,
Yeah.
and he broke his wrist but still shot the free throws because they didn't know if he didn't know how badly he was
Right.
hurt, so he wanted to shoot the free throws so he could return in the game if he needed to. I think that would add a little more excitement to it.
Yeah, I
I don't
mean,
know.
what you're tapping into is like a problem that that soccer just generally has right now, which is that a penalty in some instances is a recognition of like you were going to score that anyway, and so the
Yep.
fact that it's like around an 80% chance to convert it makes total sense. So like denial of a goal scoring opportunity, it's just you and the keeper, and someone tackles you from behind. Um, and you get a penalty out of that. Like that makes sense that that's 80%. But then you have the penalties that we gave away recently, where players are like against Chelsea, where players are like on the edge of the box facing away, and it's just this little like shove or something, and it's like, yeah, that probably doesn't need to be an 80% chance because you were never scoring from there. And so then we have to say, well, you knew what you were doing, like they were going to go down
Right.
anyway. But like you have this problem where there are some penalties where it's clearly you were about to score, and sometimes where it's just like, well, you did something illegal in this specific rectangle.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a problem that will never be solved, and we'll live with it.
Hey, it's part of the game. JSL had a stinker. We all thought for sure he was going to score at least a goal. Were you surprised that Wolves JSL showed up for that game?
I'm not surprised. I'd love to say that I predicted it, but I wouldn't say that I was 0% concerned going into that game. Obviously, you have to emotionally guard yourself, but I also just I've watched him for half a season or whatever, and I just didn't think that as long as we were playing relatively competently that he was really going to get a ton out of it. We almost gave him a chance or two, but yeah, I don't know. He's still not an elite striker, and now he's moved from one bad team to like a kind of less bad team. Like they can give him some more chances, and they did, and he got some chances out of that, more than he would have gotten at Wolves. But yeah, that's about what I expected, more or less.
Yeah, it was I just don't know. He was so likable last year and was really coming on, and then it's just been for everybody involved. Whatever. Yeah, again, I felt they were the better team, but alas, they definitely didn't have a chance to be the better team when they went down a man after that crazy second yellow on Krejci. Definitely don't agree with that, do you, Danny?
No, very frustrating. I don't know. I mean, like for both of the yellows, you could probably make a case for it, but I also think that you could make a case against it. And I saw a couple people point out this is the same ref that we had in the Everton away game, which had two red cards, happily for Everton. Um, And so maybe there's something to that. He's new to the Premier League, and I don't know. I've seen some people say try to make a name for himself. I don't know whether that's a thing or not, um,
So
but regardless, you maybe don't know his proclivities yet, but like compared to the Arsenal game where letting a lot of things go, this was very different. But I have to say that it just felt so weird and inconsistent, especially after the red card, the second yellow card for Krejci. Thinking back to all of the weird leniency that he had in the first half, it felt, like it you could justify it almost in the sense of like, well, I don't want to ruin this game, by giving a red card in the first half, even though I think Will Hughes probably deserved it. And it's possible that there's a couple others. Like I think Adam Wharton had a couple of questionable fouls and may have been on a yellow card at that point. To then go to Krejci's, where it's like you could argue that he got the ball in the first one, but fine, give it as a yellow. And then the second one, there's almost no time after the whistle. He thinks he's just clearing it, and just doesn't hesitate. Brings out the yellow, the second yellow, gives him a red. And it's like, okay, but if you didn't want to ruin a game by giving a red card, then you've you've really gone back on that. And then, I mean, as a couple people pointed out later, Hugo Bueno kicked the ball away. He thought that it was a goal kick when the ball had gone out, and he kicked the ball over to be taken by Jose Sa. And then, they indicated it's a corner kick. Hugo Bueno reacts classically, frustrated, but no yellow card for that one. And it's like essentially the same thing where like he didn't deduce what the call was, instantly and kicked it away thinking he was doing the right thing. Same thing with Krejci. He didn't deduce exactly what the call was. He cleared it up the line. I don't even think the ball went out, It's just, anyway, all that to say, obviously, just like in every other game this season, the red card is probably not the entire reason that we lost that game.
Yeah,
because there was a penalty that we did not convert, and also we were not playing that well. But
and I brought this up too. The second yellow, that was bad on the ref. But really, I don't think every ref gives Wolves a penalty there, because I think they would have called the foul that was prior outside of the box. He let Wolves play advantage, which then led to the penalty. I thought that was really good officiating. So, I was disappointed to see it go from a thing that was really good officiating to something as ticky-tack as that. Whatever. So, you could see what was going to happen. 30 minutes down a guy. This is not going to end well. And it didn't. What surprised me is who was the main culprit, and that was João Gomez, who just completely lost his man, was kind of jogging. This is the first time that I can remember where I thought João Gomez had a lack of effort and it cost Wolves. Can you remember any other time?
No. I mean, genuinely can't think of a time, which speaks to his consistency and the level that he's brought since he came in. I do wonder that, he's been left out a couple of times now. And
he was left out both games this week. Out of the starting
11. Yeah. And I've heard, rumblings that, he's been carrying an injury and obviously playing. I think he played 90 minutes in that Grimsby game. That probably didn't help. Which I don't know. I go back and forth about that one, whether it was right to make so few subs in that rough game. On the one hand, like you're obviously risking your players, but on the other hand, how easily can players get up to speed playing on that kind of pitch? So I think there's arguments both ways, but anyway, I'll be interested to see if someone asks Rob Edwards in his, pre-match for the next game for Villa, how João Gomez is doing, because clearly he's fit enough to be on the bench. And I think there's a lot of people that feel like if you're fit enough to be on the bench, you should be fit enough to play regardless. But
And they viewed him fit enough to come in to see out a 0-0 draw.
Yeah. But I do wonder, just like if you've been injured and you're still, getting back up to speed in that sense, how quickly do you get up to speed in a game where you're under pressure? And that could get again, that could be on Rob. I think that
Yeah.
there's a lot of legitimate questions to be asked about Rob Edwards as a head coach, and unfortunately, it's all sort of undermined by kind of what a poor squad was put together in the summer, where
Yeah.
I think something that a lot of people are finding frustrating, including myself, is that like there's really very little to judge right now. I think it's fair for people to say these are terrible subs. Rob Edwards isn't a particularly good manager. Like if that's what they're seeing, I get it. But at the same time, it's always has to be caveated against, you know, this is a unevenly built squad with a lot of downgrades from what it had 1 or 2 years ago. Um,
Hmm.
and
When it
what could
wasn't that great 1 or 2 years
yeah,
ago.
and what could any manager do in this scenario? So like I'm very open to the belief that Rob Edwards is not the man to carry Wolves forward, but I don't know that you can necessarily like make a rock solid case with the squad that he has.
Hmm. We have Sharky WWFC in the comments says that Gomez did it against Bournemouth for Alex Scott's goal. I'd have to go back and look at that, but that could be the case. I don't know. Here's one thing with Rob Edwards. So you're kind of bringing it up here, and I was thinking about it after that game. I don't know. Edwards has been around now for several months. I don't know what Wolves' identity is under him. And I feel like that's a little concerning for a manager when you've had him for 3 months and you don't really know the identity. You don't know the style they're necessarily trying to play. Now, a big part of that is, as you said, the squad is built so poorly, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think there's like, hey, I've got a plan for this.
Yeah, I think that I fall more on that latter side where like I just what kind of identity can you even have,
Yeah.
with this team? It's I think it's hard enough at times to build a squad identity with like a well-built squad. I think we said that at times under Bruno Lage, who like the downgrades were already starting to happen, but there were still lots of pieces there that he could work with. And we were still saying, what's the identity of this team sometimes? Um, and and so it's just like again, it kind of goes back to that where it's like, how can I judge at this point? Like I'm totally open to Rob Edwards doesn't know how to instill an identity, but I also don't know how fair it is to pin him on that with this squad.
Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. So that finished the week. 2 games, 1 point. Look, we're getting relegated. Doesn't really matter. Who knows? Probably not. I think we'll beat Derby's record, which ultimately is the goal right now. Now, we're looking ahead to next year, we're all excited about Matthias Mane. Apparently, who's also excited is his agent and Manchester United and Liverpool fans who insist now they are getting him this summer. I still doubt this, Danny. Number one, um, he's not going to be. I mean, he's going to sit on the bench a lot for those teams if he goes in. It's not like he's going to be with what he is at Wolves, where he's playing the whole time. Plus, he's still a super young kid. It's not like he's a wonder kid necessarily. He's going to be really, really good. But I feel like a year of hopeful domination in the championship opens up a lot more doors for him.
Yeah, I'd like to believe that. I'm going to be a little bit of a downer here and say that it just like I agree with you in a logical sense, but also we've seen plenty of players, be lured away by other things. Or take for example, a certain different Mateus Cunha, who you know may or may not have seen the writing on the wall in terms of the way the club is run and said, is there going to be a team that I can play within that
Hmm.
will allow me to shine? And so like he may totally agree with you and say like, yeah, I'm probably going to ride the bench a lot at Man United or whatever. Um, but if he thinks like, well, if I stay with Wolves and they don't adequately build a squad and we're mid-table in the championship, what does that do for me? Unless I can
Right.
really, carry the team. And I don't know what the right answer is there because we still don't know how or if anything has changed with regards to, recruitment
Recruitment.
or, just the way that the club is run. So my sort of like pessimistic self is like, you know, sort of like I don't know if I were there, if I were an employee of this club as a player, would I be looking for a different club to be an employee of, regardless of what role I had with them?
Mhm.
I might be. So, and obviously we know the influence that agents and money can have. So who knows? And it's not just, teams domestically. I think there's a few teams in Europe that have been linked to him too. It just shows that, his agent is at least testing the waters.
Mhm. I did see an article that was like Wolves have set a price of 50 million pounds and Liverpool will pay that, which I thought both statements were quite hilarious. Look, he may be worth 50 million to us because we're looking at it going, well, if he's the one that's for sure going to help us get back next year, then yes, he is worth a lot of money. Um, do I think they could get that for him right now? No. Do I think that Liverpool would pay? Absolutely not. To to me, I feel like this is a big problem in soccer in general. Is a lot of these younger guys get recruited by the Chelseas, by the Liverpools, by the Manchester Uniteds, and they go there too soon. Trafford is a perfect example. He was at Burnley, he was going to be the man. Oh, Man City wants me. Okay, I go. And now he's sitting on the bench. Like he never plays. And you see that all the time. That really screwed up the US men's national team. Zach Steffen going to Manchester City. Chelsea, how many guys have just gone over there? Then they're either sitting on the bench or they send them out for some loans. I would have a lot more understanding for Matthias Mane if he said, "Hey, look, I don't want to play in the championship. Sell me to a team like Brighton or Forest." Well, Forest maybe it relegated to Brentford, somebody like that. So then I can still be in the Premier League, show off what I got, and then move up. I think if he went from Wolves right now to a Big Six team, that's such a bad move, but they all do it, and it's agent driven, 100%.
It's agent driven. It's also the clubs, making promises about a pathway that they can't back up. And
Yeah, it's
that's like,
bullshit.
right. The teams that you point out, I'll reframe this for a Wolves context. There was always this idea, under, Jeff Shee or, anyone really that we're going to be self-sustainable, that, you have to bring these players through, et cetera. And there was always kind of this allusion to the Brighton model or whatever,
Mhm.
this, vaulted idea, but you have to be able to back it up with your scouting and with your actual
Your
pathways.
academy. Yeah.
And just like if other players can see, oh yeah, this player came in when he was 19 or 20 and then became a part of the starting 11 and then moved on or didn't or whatever, then like that's a pathway. But like the idea that Wolves were going to be able to produce that, under Jeff Shee was always a little bit laughable. And then in the end, extremely laughable, that we weren't bringing in players that were going to make an impact or be able to grow into a role. Um, the way that we brought in players who were so far behind the players in front of them that they then went out on loan, these kinds of things. But, I think a lot of teams, a lot of big teams like Chelsea are able to make these sort of crooked promises. And that coupled with the amount of money that they're offering, just it's very easy for someone, if you believe in yourself, and say, well, maybe I can cut it at Chelsea, you say, fine, I'll go, plus big paycheck bump. And I'm just going to, go there and work my way into the 11, not knowing that, they're going to send you out on loan 20 times. Yeah, I don't know. There's no real real answer to this, except that it's I mean, as a person who I guess straight male who likes sports, Moneyball is a movie that I've watched several times, and it's just one of those things like you don't have a crystal ball. And I think like a lot of clubs forget that, and also a lot of players forget that, which is that like for all the players who make it big at 19, there's 100 other players who were something hot at 19 for 3 months and then, dropped down a few levels and played there the rest of their lives.
Moneyball, one of the most overrated sports movies.
Wow. Okay. I'm not taking any movie recommendations from you ever again.
Oh, are you familiar with that athletics team? That athletics team did not win because of Scott Nam Hatterberg. They won because they had an amazing trio
the
of
movie
pitchers.
Is not about them winning because of Scott Hatterberg. Anyway, this isn't the athletic, a whole lot of athletics.
And Billy Beane is a clown. Billy Beane, there is a reason the Oakland Athletics are no longer in Oakland, and Billy Beane is one of the biggest culprits.
It's about storytelling, Josh.
It's a puff piece for a piece of shit
when we start our second podcast about culture, we'll have this argument.
I could go.
I just want last movie comment here. I just want you to recognize from a not sports guy, me, not natively anyway, to a sports guy, you sitting here saying that Moneyball is not good because it's not accurate to what happened in real life sports is like if you're telling me that I should want to go see The Lord of the Rings in theaters, and I say, well, actually, in the books, did you know that this thing happens? It is identical.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I obviously follow baseball a lot then, and so it's just funny how it's like, okay, I guess Miguel Tejada never existed in this Moneyball universe. I just have issues with Billy Beane already. Yes, the whole we'll go. This is a soccer podcast, not a baseball podcast. So I prefer Sharky says I prefer Mighty Ducks over Moneyball. That's a solid shout. That's solid shout.
Fine. I don't know.
Miracle is better than both of them though. And we saw another miracle with hockey there. Okay. Preview time. Wolves are playing Aston Villa Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern. 2 p.m. Central. Danny, but there is an update for the for the Michigan Wolves event.
Yeah, that's right. I wanted Joe Deluski, our guest last week, to drop me a line and just give me the last minute details. We obviously wanted to have him on last week so that everybody could hear. And obviously if there's anyone, making plans and they want to come up, then that'd be great. So little last minute, talking points from this. Obviously, if you still haven't decided and want to go, you absolutely should. As he says, everyone is welcome to join for the Wolves Villa match this Friday in Michigan. Let me just bring up, they meet at Doyle's in Plymouth. You can always look them up on Twitter, Mish Wolves USA. They have all the details there. And you don't need to be a Michigan Wolves member. You don't need to be even a longtime supporter. You don't need to be a regular. You don't even really need to be a Wolves fan. But come there knowing that going to be a big Wolves meetup. Wear your Wolves colors if you got them. Obviously, no RSVP is required. Just show up at Doyle's in Plymouth. They recommend getting there around 2 p.m. Eastern for the 3 p.m. kickoff. Obviously, that's on Friday. It's going to be busy. Just to remind people, the Premier League and Guinness are going to be filming a little documentary as part of their alternate derby series. I was alternate derby. Little aside as I'm giving these quick fire talking points. I appreciate Joe Deluski saying derby. And I really respect the British pronunciation for a lot of things. But I do think it's funny that hearing Rebecca Lowe will say, the Black Country Derby. But then they have her covering the Kentucky Derby, and she says derby. It's the same word.
I never thought I would hear an argument like that from you. That's brilliant. I can't stand that it's called derby either. It's derby. But
Well,
then again, I am also somebody that will fight to the absolute death that it is lawyer, not lawyer.
Okay, well, this is like a Southern pronunciation thing because to me these are like almost identical pronunciations. Anyway, we'll have a third podcast about linguistics at some point because I
Because
could
if
go for a while
anybody
on
is a
that.
linguistic specialist, it's this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, to return to the talking points, which I've almost completely abandoned, there's going to be a documentary being shot there, so obviously be aware of that. But really, it's just about celebrating local fandom and fandom overseas. Representing this club. There is going to be a club representative attending from Wolves. And there will be official Wolves merch there. So obviously that's something to be
Hey,
excited about
get it now
potentially.
so you don't have to pay tariffs.
Exactly. I mean, genuinely, you cannot know what's happening with tariffs one week to the next. So better to just get it here. And if you
my
have,
wife ponied up the tariff money to get me the Brazil kit and this one right here, the
that's a
training
good
kit.
one too.
Yeah, it's nice. It's comfy.
Yep. All right. If anyone has questions or want more details, Joe says you can reach him at wolvesmichiganusa@gmail.com. That's spelled exactly like it sounds. I'm not going to spell it out. Obviously, you can also get in touch with us at Whole Lot of Wolves, and we will get you in touch with Joe Deluski if you need to. But also a safe bet that if you post on the Wolves USA Facebook page, you will also be able to get in touch with him.
So, because Danny and I like to go on tangents, we are running short on time. And let's be honest, you're not listening to this right now to get a breakdown of the Villa Wolves game. All right. So let's just go straight to the predictions. Last week, we both scored a point because we had no idea that Wolves would get one from Arsenal, but we knew they would lose to Palace by a goal. We just didn't have the correct score. So I still have 26. Danny has 19. Alex has 13, and the guest spot has 12. So what are you thinking for this Villa contest where Villa is third in the standings?
Yeah, I don't know. We have a good record against Villa, even when we're pretty poor. So, and we do tend to have a reaction. I've done a little bit of side glancing at Rob Edwards tonight, and I think it's fair to say that since he came in, we have also had a lot of draws that he has ground out. Strangely, very few losses, and most of those losses are to teams like City or Chelsea. So I think that we have some kind of chance, but I always have to benchmark that. I'll use Jeff Shee's benchmarking tactics here. I have to benchmark that against the rest of our season, which is that like my small hope that we can turn up against Villa, because we tend to do that, translates into let's say a 2-2 draw again.
A draw. Okay. 2-2 draw.
That's as optimistic as I'm willing to be.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty optimistic. I don't know where you're getting 2 goals from. I know we got 2 goals against Arsenal, but yeah, I just don't see again where we're getting scoring from. So, but I've got a big enough lead. I'm tired of picking against Wolves. What the hell? 1-0 Wolves.
Let's go.
Jose Sa shutout, clean sheet. Let's go.
I thought you were going to say Jose Sa scores the goal.
No, I'm not that. I still can't drink, Danny. I'm on my drinking my sparkling Buble water. So, yeah.
All right. Well, it is that time of the show again, where you, the listener, can ask anything about the wonderful club that is Wolverhampton Wanderers. You can always email us at wholelotofwolves@gmail.com or reach us on X/Twitter at WLWpod. If you're watching on the live stream, try to take some questions as they come in. But Josh, I understand you have the first question.
Yeah, so I was getting really bored after my surgery, tired of TV. And so I was trying to find something to do, and I discovered Whatnot Auctions. And people that know me know I did collect pop characters. You always see them kind of sitting around and stuff. Realizing I can get pop characters for like $4 to $5 a piece on an auction has led down a different rabbit hole, and now I have over 150 with more, with more on the way. So my question is, what Wolves player do you think is the most likely to be a type of collector, and of what? Now, I collect Funkos. We know Chris Wood in Ohio, he collects coins. But is there somebody in Wolves collects stamps, collects toys? What is it?
That's a great question. I wish I'd been looking ahead in the show notes so I could prepare an answer for this. This is maybe a little bit boring, but I feel like, having with Chris Wood in mind, it's always little freaks that are coin collectors, and there's like something in my mind that immediately went to Jose Sa as a coin collector, like someone who's just like absolutely nuts. I will say one former Wolves player who was definitely a collector of some things was Nelson Semedo, had a ton of figurines from Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, nice. Nice. See, I thought Jose Sa as well, except I kind of thought he collected wrestling merchandise. That kind of seems like something.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Whether it's, cards or toy figures or even just shirts or whatnot. I think something like that. Who else? It's always, the eccentric guys. So I don't think anybody like Armstrong or Jao Gomez or Andre, they don't really seem like collectors. Rodrigo Gomez just collects like all the dried flowers for what he brings his wife every day to profess his love. I could see Mosquera being a collector of something. Not really sure what, but I could see. And wouldn't it be funny if it was like just like poetry books or something like that?
Yeah.
I mean, AJ Brown for the Philadelphia Eagles reads like self-help books on the sideline, so you never know.
You truly never know, those little freaks. We do have a question in the chat, and we went over this a little bit, but maybe good to give it its own platform. Do you think Rob and Nathan understand fan sentiment? Years of decline, disconnect, and misalignment. Cheering subs because we can't cheer the dross on the pitch. They expect us to just forget it all.
I agree. And you have the argument of, I'm a paying customer. I can react how I want. And that's fair. I get what Rob Edwards was saying as far as like, hey, the guys need some support and blah, blah, blah. But I feel like there is support at the beginning of the game. That's the funny thing. It's not like they come onto the pitch at the beginning and they're already boo, boo, getting them off. Like, they're there. They're cheering. It's just that they're so bad that, then the cheering isn't as hard as it was.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely, I would echo those sentiments, because I think like this is sort of the callous thing to say, but it's like, there's a way to get the crowd to cheer, and I know that like you're essentially asking players who maybe aren't good enough to just play better. But at the same time, like there are other things you can do to get the fans on side in terms of your performance. So there's that side of it. I also think, he mentions Nathan Shee, and we don't know yet. We genuinely know nothing about the guy, except the tiny little bits that they were willing to say against Jeff Shee in that fan meeting. But the little bit of hope that I live in is that it's hard to be more of a baffling enigma than Jeff Shee was. So there is some hope that a competent management professional would be able to hire and promote the right people to make the good decisions. But I think what's lacking for me from Rob Edwards right now, and I kind of like Rob Edwards. Like I don't have anything particular against him per se, but is like, I felt more connected to some of like Gary O'Neill's initial rhetoric, where he understood like the team on the pitch has to reflect the fan base, coming from a working class area, and at least understanding that part. And maybe Rob Edwards does, and maybe he feels like it doesn't even need to be said at that point. But I think it does need to be said. Like, it's almost all we can hope for at this point, which is that the players, actually try and actually seem to give a damn. And, that's all people are asking. So I think Rob would do well to strike that middle ground. I think it's going to be tough for him because the probably the right path is sort of like, it's me and the team with the fans, and who gives a damn about the hierarchy, but that's not a thing that keeps you in the job very long. So it's a difficult line to tread, but understanding is needed.
Well, and I think guys like Jose Sa understand it. Like you saw when he got out of the car to talk to the fans. Like, he seems like somebody that understands, yeah, we're playing he said it, we play like crap, but, this fan base does just want to see fight. That's a big thing. And yeah, this Sharky WFC is saying the same thing here. A Pedro Lima or Rodrigo Gomez gets grace like Rodrigo did against Forest, where he was poor. Yeah, because he hustles his buns off. That's why he's easy to like. Sharky mentioned Chichua because the crowd's roaring when he's got space. You're supposedly the fastest player in the Premier League. Chichua wouldn't get mockingly cheered off the pitch if he would just go forward. We're not even asking him to be super great. It's like, just run at somebody. Don't keep passing it back. It's so mad. And I get it. I get the frustration. And again, this is what, like we said earlier, when you have a manager who was a player for a long time, he's going to side with the players, and, well, he's going to go back, well, I did better when the fans were cheering. I get it. But we also have to remember that these players make more in a year than a lot of, well, I'd say probably the majority of the fans do in a decade or two. Probably closer to 2.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, like most things, it's just sort of a wait and see until the summer. I hate to say that because, hopefully everyone sticks with the team and sticks with us going through it, because, it's been a long old season and still got a little bit to go, but I know we're eagerly awaiting answers, and hopefully there's some surprises in there for us too, because I still think that there's a handful of players at least on this team who can actually, put something special together under the right circumstances. And hopefully,
look, I've got more new hips this year than Wolves have wins in the league.
Oh Lord, Wolves, please break that record at least, if not Derby.
You'll never sing that, Danny.
Oh Lord. All right. Well, that wraps up No Stupid Questions. Remember, you can reach us in between episodes at wholelottofwolves@gmail.com. You can also tweet at us. You can tweet at us individually, me at Baltimore Wolves, Josh at Joshua Buckley on Twitter. And that's going to just about do us. Once again, I'll say, just re-up this comment. If you want to reach out to us, if you're part of a local supporters group, like Joe with Michigan Wolves, please reach out to us. Let us know where you're at and when you meet up. We'd be happy to let people know where you are and how they can get in touch. So drop us a line if you care to. Thanks, of course, to Alex producing. We will be back in about a week or so to discuss the results against Aston Villa and 2 quickfire games coming up against Liverpool. You'd be doing us a huge favor and help grow the Whole Lot of Wolves brand by giving us a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice. Hit the like button on YouTube, subscribe to our channels, all the stuff that you're told every single time. Hit the bell, all that. And finally, of course, as the Podfather Emeritus Paul LePage would say, up the mighty Wolves.